Hey, produce people, welcome to the Produce Industry Show, the Produce Industry Podcast, better known as the Produce Industry Network. We are live today, everyone, April 19th, 2024. Welcome to the podcast studio. We have some breaking news today, and I've got my man,
Hello.
Paap.
I was
What's up,
wondering why I
man?
didn't come in.
You think I was just going to leave you back there for a while?
Be back there for a while.
Really, I wanted to make sure everybody saw the environment here. If you've noticed, John, which I know you're on a lot of calls with me, but I was able to change some of this. My cousin was in town, and he have rearranged all of this and put some new stuff in. We reorganized the books. We even have some more produce-themed people up here. We got Green Giant, and Sprout. We've got the DeLorean, and just move some stuff around to get a little bit more cozier here at the studio.
Yeah. Well, redesigning.
My wife always asks me, she's like, "Why do you do it so much?" She's like, "You're always moving stuff around in there."
Well, it's when you have these small spaces, you got to keep it fresh. So you just got to shift things here and there.
I feel like I always got to keep it fresh. Always, always, always keeping it fresh here at the Produce Industry Podcast. What's going on with you, man? You're in a different spot yourself compared to your normal spot.
I'm working from home this week. But came on for this special breaking news that we have.
We got some fun stuff, man.
What's that?
I said we got some fun stuff. Why don't you talk to, before we give the breaking news, let's give some of the other news that we have. Why don't you give an update just on the history of fresh produce? If you're just tuning in, you'd have no idea what we're doing. John, give them the 90 second, 30,000 foot overview of, what the history of fresh produce is. Let's let them know about the history of Fresh Produce Club, and maybe even ask some questions to some people who are interested.
Yes. So the history of fresh produce started about over a year now ago, January 2023. And we basically look to explore the history of fresh produce. So we start out with crops primarily the first year, but we've since then intermingled the stories and focused more on specific periods of history. So examples obviously were Hawaii, our big 4-part series at the beginning of this year, the mafia, all these different unique stories that we've, for the most part, familiar with on a very basic level that we've learned in school growing up. But now we're doing things through the lens of fresh produce, and there's surprisingly a lot there. And so because of a lot of you who have been listening and have been reaching out, we have also now been exploring and preparing to launch the History of Fresh Produce Club. You would have heard us announce or tease this in our episode that dropped earlier this week. And so we're still working out the details of what that's going to look like, but we do plan to launch that in the next month or two. So do keep eyes open and ears open on that. Of course, we're open to feedback on what you guys all want to hear, guys and girls, want to hear from us in terms of a club membership. We floated ideas about a chat community, bonus episodes, early releases, ad-free listening, book discounts potentially. So there's a whole range of possibilities there that we're exploring and putting the final touches on. But we've had a fantastic time exploring these stories. Patrick and I are both very passionate about produce, of course, but also history. It's something that I grew up always very passionate about. And to have the opportunity to share those stories via this platform has been a great privilege and what can I say? Just very enjoyable. So that's the high level view of the history of fresh produce. It just continues to grow. It's very exciting. And we have a also big series coming out for the Olympics, the Summer Olympics. This summer, we're going to be doing a whole not mountain, I would say a waterfall of episodes that are going to fall during the period of the Summer Olympics, with, of course, a very unique perspective with produce and history tied to the countries participating in the Olympics. So that's what I have, Patrick. Do you have anything else that I may have missed in that little synopsis?
No, I love it, John. And one of my questions I was going to have for you, just in case people didn't know, where are we going to house the history of fresh
Oh,
produce? That's one thing you didn't say.
that's true.
Just saying.
No, I mean, I'm sure some of our listeners probably have. Obviously, I mean, this is unlikely to be the only podcast you listen to, for as much as and highly as that we think of ourselves. But if you do listen to other podcasts, you probably are familiar with paid memberships on other podcasts, and they will go through either Apple or Spotify or different platforms.
Yep.
The History of Fresh Produce Club, at least initially, will be housed on the Produce Industry Podcast app.
Correct.
And everything will live in there. That's where you'll go on to register, to
Yep.
sign up, to access all the bonus content and material and whatever else we decide to publish within that space. Uh, yeah, pretty straightforward. It's a simple app. You download it, and yeah, for all of us working with apps today, it's really nothing difficult to follow through. It's pretty straightforward.
No, it's pretty easy. You can get it on all of your devices, and that's what's kind of cool about it. Is that's what we developed it for, John. One thing I'll let everyone's see is that here's the back end to our mobile application. So we've already started a spot, History of Fresh Produce Membership Club. Now you might be thinking to yourself, if you're a sponsor now, you're like, wait a minute, ad-free listening. Well, doesn't that apply to me? Yes, of course. But also, we only have 2 ads in the middle of our shows now, possibly only one. We do keep the ads already limited in what we're doing. But on another side, for the education platform, we want to make sure that there is ad free for the colleges, for the book writers, for the students, right? Everything possible that people that again want the access that are not everyday business people like ourselves, because there's a lot that why we create clubs is to attract a certain demographics or a certain audience realistically, right, John?
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, obviously not everybody in the world is going to sign up to be a member of the club anyway. So those that do sponsor and have ads will still have those ads being played for the majority of listeners, I think. And actually, you mentioned the education page, Patrick. I don't even think have we even no. I guess we did announce that sort of like a soft announcement. I think on social media. So that's another tie-in to the history of fresh produce and obviously the podcast platform as a whole. There'll be a new element developing uh, in that area of the network as well. So yeah, I think we touched on everything as related to the club, right?
Yeah,
That's
100%.
not the breaking news
This
though.
is what we want to make sure is, so if you are interested in signing up for the mobile application, that's the one thing we got to point you to. So if you do go on the produceindustrypodcast.com website, you can actually go to, I'll show you right now. So you
There it
type in the
is.
produceindustrypodcast.com. There's a spot that says mobile application. You click right on that mobile application. And then from there, you'll get the pop-up to Apple and or Android, and obviously it'll take you to here. This is different. Listen, everyone, I have had the misconception. People say, but Pat, I already subscribed to your podcast. That's that little purple button on your phone. This, you have to go into the application on your Apple and or Android device, and then you'll be able to download the mobile application that has all types of information in it. It's got videos, it's got sponsored material, it's got podcasts. Heck, we got 4 to 5 different podcasts from the industry in there. So these are all things that you can do, and then you'll be able to access that History of Fresh Produce Club when it becomes available. So really easy. The education page we have started because we have been teasing, kind of talking about education. We've been talking about what we've wanted to do. You know, everyone, if you know me and you talk to me on a normal basis, I have a passion for knowledge. I have a passion for education. I have a passion for moving things forward. Heck, some people call that a disruptor at times. But what I want to focus on is how do we engage and educate our industry in the next level, right? Not to the next level, in the next level, because I believe that we are in that next level now. And it is our job to start bringing the next generation in that level today for them to be able to innovate, create, and then inspire for the future. So, part of this breaking news announcements, I know it's 11 minutes and 32 seconds in. You're like, why have we not heard the
Suspense.
um, you know, everyone, John did an amazing job reaching out and talking to people about how we can better the industry together. And we had a, company reach back to us and said, how can we support? We put a program together that said we want to really emphasize, what you're doing and how you're doing it. So everyone, the big announcement, John, do you want to do the big announcement? I should try to see if I could
Sure.
find on here
I
like
mean, I think
um,
also, piggybacking on the tee up here to our announcement, like you were saying, education is so critical, and I think that's obviously what you've been doing, Patrick, from the onset of starting the podcast for the produce industry and the expansion of the shows, obviously one of them being the History of Fresh Produce, along with the other shows on the platform, is bringing a vast array of knowledge and education to those in the industry and also those outside the industry. Again, if you've listened to this series, in particular, the History of Fresh Produce, you'll have heard us talk about many times now how agriculture really was the profession, the skill set that majority of people had for centuries and centuries and centuries, only until the last 200 or so years, really, when the Industrial Revolution kicked in, where that took a drastic shift and change within global societies. So I think bringing this level of knowledge, in the case of History of Fresh Produce, the stories of how produce impacted history, the stories of how produce and history impact each other, and then the other elements, that is helping bringing us back to our roots because food is humanity, food is civilization, food is history. And I feel obviously for a lot of us, we've become far removed from that. And so I think what we've been trying to build, obviously, Patrick, you're the leader here, is trying to build is bringing us back to that familiarity, back to that connection to food and specifically fresh produce. And so uh, this is a long-winded way of saying that.
long-winded way, like, yes, I'll marry you, John. No,
Yes, yes, I know.
can we try to play some music? Like I have, listen, I have like a whole music outline box. It's like R&B, future pop. Should I just like click one and see what kind of music comes out, and then we'll throw like the
To
logo
change
of
my tone or something. I'm gonna have to like adjust on the fly. But so anyway, with that whole background of what we've been trying to achieve, we wanted to align ourselves and partner and collaborate with an entity that shared those thoughts, that has been a leader in that space themselves, in education of agriculture and promoting it and learning and and yeah, has been doing it for a long time. And so for us, that was about reaching out to an institution. We felt that was a very appropriate place to start for a sponsor for the History of Fresh Produce. And this isn't just any institution. This institution is constantly ranked as the leading agricultural science college in America, let alone in the world. And we are very proud, very privileged, and very humbled that they have decided to support us on this platform, on this show, and that college is Cornell University. So we are very, again, ecstatic and excited to be partnering with Cornell University. For those in the industry, I think many of you probably know who Cornell University is at this point. They do have they have participated in various degrees within the industry, namely through IFPA, of course, through their programs. Um, Cornell, if you are not familiar, has something called the Food Industry Management Program. And this program is really one of the most recognized premier food industry education research programs in the US. And they partner with various associations and industries in the food sector to bring leadership programs and continuing education in these spaces. And obviously, one of those associations is the International Fresh Produce Association program. And they do this annually, I believe, usually around the last week of March. I think it's about 40, up to 40 people can apply and attend this program. I was fortunate enough to be asked to speak at one of the sessions last last year, and that was actually my first time at Cornell, and it's an absolutely gorgeous campus. I mean, if you don't know the history of Cornell, it's been around for a very long time. It was established in 1865. That's when they got their um, what's the word? Establishment. I can't think. There's a word for it. Basically, chartered. That's the word. Chartered in 1865, but they didn't start their academic year until the year of 1868 to 69. And so they've been around for a very long time. Agriculture has been the major catalyst for the university when it was created. So right after the Civil War, there was a federal Morrill Act, which set aside federal land to either be used or sold by states in order to endow public universities that would provide education to the working classes, right, in both liberal and practical subjects. And obviously, agriculture was one of those key practical subjects for the working class. Over 50% of Americans at that period were in agriculture. And what made Cornell extremely unique for that time is that they democratized American higher education. They they gave an opportunity to a lot of people that didn't necessarily have the means or the access to higher learning. University in the 1860s were reserved for those who could read Latin and Greek and just had the means to apply for such education. And Cornell really shook that up. And so, even beyond that, though, they also became a co-educational and non-religious institution. So they weren't affiliated with a religion. They weren't saying this is just for white men or whatnot. This was open to everybody. I mean, the first African American woman graduated with a botany degree from Cornell University. This is a groundbreaking university on many fronts. And that, of course, I'm not even talking about the agriculture side of it. I mean, the amount of work they've done on agriculture. Again, if you're not overly familiar with the programs, and I'm not going to go into the deep details on it all right now, but they have some very impressive programs there and research that's constantly undergoing within that institution. I mean, they are doing research on popular fruit crops that exist today, like tomatoes, potatoes, pumpkins, things like this, looking at genetic improvements to make these crops more pest and disease resistant. And I think one of the most exciting things I saw when I was learning more about Cornell, they have this something called Crops of the World Garden. And this garden features a ton of food crops from around the world. So you can find things like, obviously things that are common to hear, like corn, wheat, and rice, and things like that. But you also get grains that are less common to the Northeast, like sorghum, millet, quinoa, and they also have tropical fruits like bananas and coffees. Um, just all these amazing things. The Three Sisters, they have the Three Sisters bed display, which we've talked about on a previous episode as well. So it's really a fascinating institution. And it was just really a no brainer for us to approach them and ask if this was something that we're interested in. And again, we were very appreciative of their support and their enthusiasm to support what we're doing here on the History of Fresh Produce, as well as the Produce Industry Podcast. And yeah, what else can I say? We're very excited.
No, I agree, man. And I think that I was trying to play some music, but it just didn't happen. Um, oh, Paul, look at Paul Manfrey. Like, oh, Paul always watches. I love produce and all the people in it. Well, Paul, thank you. We appreciate you loving produce and all the people in it. Thanks, Paul. I just saw Paul last week at Viva Fresh, and then like 2 weeks before that in Tampa at SCPC. Yeah, listen. At the end of the day, I think that moving our industry forward is what we're here to do, and having guidance from educators, professors, kids, because that's what's going to move us forward
Yep.
is compromising communication and building the industry that we know and love together. So, everyone, as we start to develop more for you on the education page, please stay tuned. Please look for all of these different things that we're coming out with. I know there's a lot. I know I get a lot of people that say to me like, "Man, you're everywhere. You're doing so much." Well, this is for you. This is not just me sitting here doing this for myself. Yes, I do have a selfish need for knowledge and learning more. So I am definitely going to take part in this as well. I'm going to spend the time to build out the education page for you. I'm going to spend the time to make the sponsorships and clubs available for you. And I want to make sure that you get the community that is deserved for all the hard work that produce people put in. College students are putting in to get degrees to try and get jobs. And I think that as the leaders in our industry, if we don't step up now to make the world better for tomorrow, then what are we doing? And I always laugh, John, because I say this a lot. You ever watch that movie Robots?
Mm, yep.
It was a Disney movie, Robots, with Mr. Bigweld, and it was so great. His saying was, "See a need, fill a need."
Yep.
There we go. So we've seen a need in the industry, and we're going to fill a need, and we plan on partnering with great people to accomplish this for you. So with that, I say thank you to everyone who's supporting us so far, and John, thank you so much for thinking about the history of fresh produce at all times, man.
Oh yeah. I wouldn't have it any other way. And just so listeners also know, there will be more coming out about our relationship with Cornell, what that means. We haven't really spelled out here today all the details related to how they're going to participate, what that all means. We're still ironing that all out, but there will be more coming, and how Cornell is going to participate in this exciting journey that we're on via the History of Fresh Produce as well as the Produce Industry Podcast. So do stay tuned to that. And again, thank you all for your support. Again, like Patrick said, this is all for you. Of course, we have a great time doing it, but it is our interest to bring the very best minds to this platform. And who better than the leading agricultural institution in the United States with Cornell University?
We'll see.